All right, hey traders, TG Watkins here. Know that over in the free trading room, I think we got lost sound for just a little bit, but with Taylor, but we got he was letting go over there, and I was stepping in anyway, so we got that taken care of and fixed. So yeah, thanks guys for letting me know. For the rest of you, we should have the Moxie room up and running, and then for the rest of you on Facebook and YouTube and all of that. So thanks again for tuning in. And then one thing I wanted to mention is I've had a couple like some pretty good calling the right direction of the market lately for the on the newsletters. So I wanted to kind of show you guys what's been going on there. So come over here, profitpilot.com, go to home, and then you can click on various topics here and watch those videos because they have been pretty spot on, which has been, but it's been fun. So to look at that stuff. Mostly what we've been looking at is we had the Jerome Powell FOMC minutes. They raised interest rates 75 basis points. We got a lot of confusion right there, a lot of jostling back and forth. But leading up into that, actually before we had the FOMC, I was out there and I was saying, hey, this Moxie indicator, not strong. That 15-minute time frame is not strong. It's not telling us that we should really believe this or that it's going to be bullish. Sure, it could move, but you better keep it on a short leash. And honestly, I'm not so sure about it. And it just was not the right setup. And that totally worked out for the next day when price imploded down here and held that way for a few days. Now, going into the 3-day weekend, happy Father's Day and Juneteenth and all that kind of stuff. And then, let's see, we got the market to rebound a little bit, which, makes sense. We were either going to totally implode or we were going to bounce because we were definitely getting oversold. And you could see that there was a big gap between price and the 8 EMA, and we were outside that third ATR. So just very, very oversold. And we started to see some positive divergence on the 15-minute time frame. And then for those of you who are kind of new to Moxie and trying to figure out the rules that I have with this, this was not strong because the indicator was spread from each other. When they're doing that, it's like, okay, they're going the same direction, they're in the same car, but they're like two kids fighting in the back of the car. They're not happy with each other, so the parents separate them. They do not agree with each other. It's only when they've hugged and made up that they look like one line, and now they can actually sit next to each other, and they're much stronger. The sentiment and their direction is stronger. So we saw that divergence like that with the tighter Moxie indicator, and we got the move up. Okay, so it's challenging to really kind of figure out how price is going to move. And I was actually talking to one of the Moxie subscribers yesterday about this because we were trying to figure out what stocks were going to be moving off the lows and say, okay, well, if we're kind of thinking that the market's going to bounce or kind of drift up or something like that, like let's take some bullish trades. And I said, the tough part is figuring out which stocks are actually going to move up versus just chop sideways. And the reason why part of that is challenging is because, like before, yes, we're in a downtrend. And while we could say we could figure out when price is oversold, we don't know either how far price is going to move up or if it's just going to move up into resistance and then continue to roll over, right? So like, how do we know when we're going to just get these bounces into resistance versus we actually get a decent move for more than a day? That's really challenging. Now, the Moxie indicator can definitely help with that. You can see here we did have the Moxie price trigger, which, again, timing, talk about good timing. That worked out very, very well. But then you can also see how the Moxie indicator stopped going down there and then actually started going up there despite price going lower. So that's positive divergence. That's like that 15-minute positive divergence I was pointing out here. So we could see that. And then also if we look at just the moving average, we could see here was the hourly 50 had actually kind of flattened out a little bit. We had price, hitting it a few times and flattening it to where it then wanted to get a bounce upwards. Well, what are we dealing with right now? Well, we have a pretty sharply down hourly 50. That's, it's just pretty significantly down. And if I kind of would add to that, we have the third ATR. Like we have price now at the upper third ATR, which, of course it can go. We've seen that before, but it's kind of already reached there. So I'm hesitant about what to really do here, especially on the bullish side, because I'm just not trying to get something that's oversold and work its way back up, I mean, you're going against all of the moving directions. You're just trying to fix an oversold condition. You're not actually trying to move up. And so ultimately, this could just turn into a bear flag. It could just kind of chop around and try to move up and hammer out a bottom maybe. But I'm still not super confident that this is a great place to go long, even though eventually we might get price up here around 390-ish, which might take us up to the daily 21. That's all true. But we can also see that in the past, we've gotten price to come up here near the daily 21 also, and then it's rolled over again. So that's my concern is, what if we are here all over again as price is basically running into a downtrending hourly 50? Sure, maybe it goes up just a little bit further, but it's dealing with these conflicting angles and everything, and I would be cautious in through here. And it may not be the easiest trade to try and figure out how the S&P is going to get up into this area, if it's going to get up into this area. The other thing I'm looking at is there's no divergence. Price has been going down. The Moxie indicator has gone down, and then price went up over the last day and a half, and the Moxie indicator has gone up over the last day and a half. There's no divergence. Price and the Moxie indicator are basically following each other. So there's really nothing I can work with here. All this so far has been is an oversold bounce, and sure, maybe it'll keep moving up a little bit, but it's a bear flag, and that's going to be tough to trade. So I just don't see much of what to do here, because again, just try to look at the past here. I mean, really, that's kind of our best example of what to be possibly expecting, is we might have gotten this bounce up into the underside of the hourly 50, but then what if we come down here before then moving up? Like, how's that going to work for your trade? Especially, what is today, Wednesday? So if you guys are trading options, if you're trading weekly options, like, you got no time. You've got no time for a pullback before a move up like that. And, I think it's possible. Now, kind of a backdrop to all of this is, historically, typically, seasonally, the week before, the week up to the 4th of July tends to be bullish. I kind of think about it as like rah, go America kind of stuff like that. And people are just not really in the mood to really short the market, or, the powers that be don't really want to have everybody going into a 4th of July holiday with a pretty sour taste in the mouth. And so that's just maybe a thing to think about. There's no way I can say if that is consistent or something that we should rely upon, because the market's going to do whatever it wants to do. But it's a thought of something to think about. And, maybe the market doesn't really go bullishly or very strong into that week, but maybe it just doesn't fall apart. That's another way to kind of think about it. It's like, okay, maybe it just kind of hangs out and holds on just to kind of get past the holiday, and then they sell it off, because that happens too. We come back from 4th of July and then down it goes. Yeah, Nick, you got it. Don't trade the X, right? That's another thing. And right now, if price were to get over the hourly 50 and the Moxie indicator is below 0, that's an inverse trampoline move. That's a false long or a short. It depends on the context of the situation, what's going on. But yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm like, I just don't know if I really want to be doing much right and through here as far as trying to figure this upside move. If anything, for now, we're looking for a move back to the upside and a reversion to the mean, just to add more shorts. Taylor, I saw him when he was leaving off, kind of said the same thing. He's like, what are we trying to do? We're trying to figure out if price can go up and if this is bullish. But really, we're just trying to short the market. At this point, we're just, we might be in individual names, which we are. Like, I've got this name or this name and this name, and we're trying to short it, but we're hanging out until the market finally shorts, because a lot of these names, they don't really get going until the market goes, of course, because 80% of stocks follow the stock market and follow the indexes. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with. All right, so I haven't seen any tickers if you guys are interested in looking, so let me know if you have anything that is of interest. But some stuff that was what I was looking at, say Tesla, because this was one that we were I'm not trading it, but I'm using it as guidance to talk about. Here's some of the things I see. One, yeah, there's a fairly big gap, or at least there was going into last week, a fairly big gap between price and the daily 50. And oftentimes we see price want to get back to those moving averages, like, right, a reversion to the mean type thing, and we want to see price get up there. And it's like, okay, if we're going to get a bounce, this at least has the opportunity, because there's room for price to move up there. But this didn't really look like a great setup yet. And yes, there was a move, but tell me if you guys were able to buy in on a Friday and be willing to hang on to it on through a Tuesday, 3-day weekend. Or if you saw the idea and there was a bit of a gap up with the whole market, that maybe you're quick and you're a morning trader and you jumped in on it right there. That's about the only situation that I could see for Tesla. Yes, technically it was a trampoline move, price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above 0, so that worked out. And you could see price lower, Moxie indicator up, and the Moxie indicator was nice and tight. So again, that worked out like I showed you on the S&P. But I'm not sure if there was anything I really would have wanted to take advantage of in that scenario. I like to wait for the higher time frames to kind of confirm, and I like to see things actually kind of pan out during the week. And I like to see pullbacks into kind of support. We didn't get any of that. It was just a big move on Tuesday. Now that I'm looking at this, again, the market's up at that hourly third ATR, and it's at the hourly 50. Look at Tesla. What do we got going on? Well, it's also at that third ATR, isn't it? Right? It's also kind of doing a 50, 200, 50 maneuver, isn't it? So I'm looking at this and saying, if I look at the bigger stocks, Tesla, Apple, Amazon, Google, the stocks that are basically the same as the indexes, well, I'm looking at this and saying, I have a feeling that there's probably going to be at least one more pullback in Tesla. Now, is that pullback going to be into strength? That's what we don't know. But I would be inclined to say I don't want to buy Tesla here if I'm going to be long. I want to see if there's a pullback, something like this, to where it comes in, does the pattern I'm familiar with, see what I like, and then if it holds, sure, there could be a move up like that if it holds. And this, if I'm just going to extrapolate, if I'm really just kind of making some stuff up and trying to connect some dots and say, if this works out ideally, then what we could be seeing is a pullback here in the next few days. And if that held, then that might set us up for another little bit of a bullish move going into next week, leading into the 4th of July, if seasonality, if the typical thing works out like that. Okay, so that's kind of a thought. And then if we look at the daily chart a little bit more closely, again, those of you who are in the Moxie room, you guys know what I'm talking about because I talk about this all the time. These are the rules. These are the things that I've kind of put together for you. What do we got? We got price kind of running into the 21 EMA, right? Or we have still a moat. That 8 is still fairly well below the 21. And so it would seem unlikely for price to just keep moving up like that, right? It would make a little bit more sense to have price kind of come down into this area a little bit, and do a little bit of an elf shoe inside of an elf shoe, because right, you see that this is an elf shoe: leg, heel, arch of the foot, ball of the foot. Well, what if we got a pattern within a pattern? Leg, heel, arch of the foot, ball of the foot, and then you get the elf toe. All right, so it's a little bit of like the movie Inception, pattern within a pattern. And that would fill out the 50-250 maneuver. And then we'll have to see if we actually get something to the upside if that leads up into the 4th of July weekend. Now, remember, can't be any clearer than this. Any up moves are basically going to be good shorting opportunities because we are in a bear market and we're oversold. And so you look for things that are going to be bouncing and you short the bounces. All right. So yes, we can catch an up move, but watch out. It's still underneath a downtrending daily 50 and the Moxie indicator is still below 0. So definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, Inception is a great movie. I really liked it. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so yeah, so the VXX. So actually, Nick, I think VXX, here's something I want to point out to you. Something's going on with VXX. They basically I think they're taking it off the market. Look how much volume there was, and look how much volume there is now, okay? Something's going on with it. They're discontinuing it. It's not important. I would be careful about using the VXX. I like the UVXY. You can also just do the VIX. And then there's also a new one, UVIX. And you can check that one out. So keep those things in mind. So going back to my tried and true UVXY. Again, mixed bag here. We are in a potential trampoline move here on the hourly chart, but we don't have a setup yet on the 15 minutes. So we're really kind of in a whole lot of like, I'm not sure I really see too much going on right now because we're in the middle of trends and moves. So keep that in mind going forward as to what we want to do in through here. Also, for those in the Moxie room, you're going to have a whole hour with me in about 45 minutes once I'm in the options room. So, I'll look at your stuff too, but just want to make sure you guys know that I'm definitely coming back for you. Yeah, Nick, I'm glad you can. Yeah, VXX, something's going on with that. Not great. I think that product is just going away. All right, let's see. Amazon. What do you think of a short on Amazon? It got rejected at the daily 21. Yes, but also no. So, I love your ticker. I need money. Yeah, that's why we're here, right? So, yes, it did get rejected at the 21, but again, if this market is oversold, like if the index, if the Nasdaq, if the S&P is oversold, and let's just say, what if the daily S&P is trying to get back to its 21 EMA before rolling over, right? Well, now that the, say, Amazon is already at the 21, then what is likely to happen that since Amazon is ahead of what the S&P is doing? What that would mean to me is that if the market moves down, then Amazon will move down right here. And then if the market moves up to eventually get to its 21, where do you think Amazon will be? Probably beyond its 21, right? Because if Amazon is already at its 21, then when the S&P reaches its 21, it's probably going to be higher. So I think this would kind of spell out the things that I'm looking for. And also remember, as I said, Tesla, Amazon, Google, Apple, because they really comprise most of the market, they're going to look kind of in a similar way to the market. And so I'm looking here, and as I described with Tesla, what do we have going on here on the hourly chart, right? We basically have a 50, 250, don't we? So I'm looking at that. I also see that yes, price is over the 50, but it's over a downtrending 50, isn't it? Well, has it tested the 50 yet? No. So while yes, I'm saying I would imagine that there's going to be a pullback. Is it tradable? That depends on your setup. Are you swing trading this? Do you think you can hang on to it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days? Like what number is that? What's your setup? Are you selling calls? Are you trying to buy a put? If it moves a little bit for a day and a half, will that work for you? Like what if it comes down to, let's say, 105 and it does it for a day and a half? Is that going to work for you? If you're buying a 30-day option, that may not work. If you're buying a 2-day option, maybe, but you got to get that timing right. If you're selling calls, okay, great. So it depends on what your strategy is, and if a little bit of a move down works. Now, what I would then push back on is if this move down is actually into, say, support for the moment, and it moves back up, and let's say it goes up to 120, that might be the bigger move. So yes, you could catch both. You could short it, then go long. You just need to, what I'm trying to communicate to you is I think you should be aware that we're probably going to get a move down, and then I would actually be looking to see if that move down is into support, and if we actually get a bit of a move up, say, into the 4th of July holiday, but then that might be into resistance and then roll over. So down and then up. And you could trade both if that situation works out for you. All right, so yeah, so JTD, yeah, UVIX is newish, and I'm looking into it too. It actually moves more, so it's more leveraged than the UVXY, but it is newish. So for now, I'm going to be sticking with my UVXY. It definitely pays enough when it moves, but it is something I'm looking into and going to be, kind of checking it out a little bit more. All right, so Christian, XBI, biotechs have been unusually strong. Last few days could be turning around if it can cross above the daily 50 and hold. Yeah, it has been, but it's still in a downtrend. And I have a hard time really, like we tried it back here a little bit, but you can see here how price did manage to get over the daily 50. But notice that as it began, the daily 50 was still in a downtrend. And so it did come up, but then it failed it. So I would be concerned that trying to get price to kind of really do this is still going against some conflicting angles. And then even more so, if we look lower, look, all these things are kind of looking the same. Doesn't this look like Tesla? Doesn't it look like Amazon? What are you seeing? 50, 250, huh? So this is why I'm kind of building the case that I would not be surprised to see most stocks come back down try to test this, and then maybe we get a move to the upside. Like if it's going to go up, I think we need to go down before going up. I would not want to initiate a long at this point. Number one, price is right there at the daily 50. Number two, you're at the third ATR. Number three, you're already at the top of this range. Number four, it's a 50-250 maneuver. Yeah, all those things. So I would be expecting and preparing for a pullback. Hopefully that pullback is into support if you want to go long, because then you can buy at that support and then go from there. How about Apple? Kind of the same thing, right? Now muted. So again, you got to pick the right horse. You got to figure out which one of these stocks, if you want it to do something, is going to do what you want it to do in a good way. So right here, what is this? It's an inverse trampoline move on the hourly chart for Apple. Do I really want to buy it right here? Probably not. I think I'd wait for a little bit more development. You know, of course, it can always go like that, like whatever. But based on what I'm seeing, I'm like, you know what? All this thing did is it bounced back from being oversold, and now it's still trying to figure itself out. It's still trying to decide what it wants to do when it grows up. So right now, it's just not. I'm not really seeing much to do with these things. And even Google, you know, same thing. Like, look, doesn't Google look like Tesla? Doesn't look like XBI? All that stuff. What do we got? 50, 250. And this is the first time that price is crossing over a downtrending hourly 50. And again, daily 21. I mean, they're all looking the same. So when they start looking the same like that, you can kind of build a case for what you think might be happening. So yeah, that's my thing. Meta, I heard more lawsuit stuff. They've just been in a downtrend. There is nothing to do with this. They're not following anything. They're doing their own thing, and that thing is down. So no, there's nothing to do with them. I would not be. I mean, unless you're shorting this, fine. But if you think there's going to be some sort of bounce, like, you know, nothing to do. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, just as an example, look right here. Doesn't that configuration kind of look like Tesla, Google, XBI, everything I was just pointing out, right? You know, 50, 250 maneuver. Yeah. And then XBI also running right into the daily 50. I mean, that looks exactly like XBI. So that's why I'm saying I'd be careful about what's going on here. You know, I'd expect to move down, then to move up, but it could be muted. I mean, all this stuff, that's just a flag. That's just a bear flag until it breaks down. And so just because the setup's there doesn't mean it necessarily has to work out. They can kind of do something and then fail. So you got to always kind of, as my dad and I talk about, we're both pilots. And so we, you know, in the cockpit, you got to keep your head on a swivel, right? Because yeah, well, back in the day, we didn't have ADS-B, which tells us where other airplanes are on our iPad or on our Garmin, anything like that. So the only way to make sure you don't have a mid-air collision is to actually look around. I mean, you know, it's the blue sky theory that, you know, there's just not enough people in such a big space that the likelihood of you actually running into somebody is pretty low. And the only way to really make sure you don't run into another airplane when you're flying is just keep your head on a swivel. You literally have to look and make sure you don't hit somebody. So yeah, for something like this in this market, you got to keep your head on a swivel because you might get an up and then a down, or, you know, all over the place. We're seeing all sorts of stuff. Adam, I am not buying anything long term. The only long term I'm buying is actually shorting because it's taking forever for some of these things to short. You know, it's just taking a long time to walk these things down and take money out of the market. So yeah, my long term is short. Dragon. So here's the thing. As far as flying, if you're VFR, which is visual flight rules, meaning you're not on radar, then you have to stay clear of the clouds. So it's exactly your question. Like, well, what if there are clouds? Yeah. If you are not on radar contact with the control center, and then, of course, they know where all the airplanes are because they can see you and they're telling you, and they will navigate you in order to avoid other airplanes. But if you are not on that system and you're just flying around, which you can, and this was before ADS-B, then you have to stay clear of the clouds. And it's for exactly that reason, because you don't want to hit somebody in a cloud because you can't see when there's somebody in there. All right, so long SQ. I just wouldn't want to touch these things, you know? It's just, these things, Square has gotten so beat up, I just don't see that there's going to be much opportunity. Now, if you can find a way to catch a little bit of a bounce there, or a little bit of a bounce there, be my guest. But I think that's all you'd be catching is a little bit of a bounce if it were to do it. But, you know, If you didn't get this right, look, it comes back down and it comes back down. It's in a downtrend. This is a sick stock. It's not doing well. It's not happy. And any bounces are probably shortable. So I really would be careful about trying to go after beat up stocks like this. And when it was really going down, I mean, look at this. When it was really going down, like there were tiny, tiny bounces. So I just wouldn't. Things that are oversold can keep getting oversold, and things that are in a downtrend can keep going down because basically nobody wants to touch this. There's a reason it's going down. All right. And yeah, ZM, I know a lot of people are looking at ZM long. I'm not. I'm still not happy about it. I'm still not there. Sure, there were some setups. You could see basically double bottom, positive divergence. Moxie indicator was nice and tight. You could see that, yes, this was a trampoline move, but it's just not a thing I want to trade. It's just not my area. And kind of going on that topic of, well, I think that there's kind of a pullback coming. Well, here's price right at that 30 ATR. It might pull back a little bit. You know, it has not actually tested the hourly 50. It's only gotten over it. So it's just not my cup of tea. I don't think it's really ready to go up. Yes, there have been bullish trades. Yes, there have been some bullish movements, but as far as like, yeah, I think this thing's really going to go rip roar, go someplace, I'm just not interested. It's just not my thing right now. All right, then let's see. FLNC. I don't even know what this thing is. Fluence Energy. Well, Energy topped out. I think Energy has had its moment and it's getting hit. And so I kind of think the Energy play. But honestly, other than that, I'm really not seeing anything here. It's really just kind of floundering down here. Yeah, I don't know. There's just not much going on with this one. There was a little bit of a move right here. You can see it's a 50, 250 maneuver. And you can see price did hold the hourly 50. But again, you got to keep that head on the swivel because what? Up here and then boom, right back down. This market is capable of doing either direction. So just keep that in mind with whatever direction you think you're going. And you got to keep these things pretty tight and pretty quick because they turn around in a hurry. Yeah, then let's see. Microsoft. I mean, it's probably going to be the same as the other, Apple. Yeah, it's mostly the same. You still have a very wide 8 and 21 to the downside. You still have, it looks just like Apple, looks like Tesla, looks like Google, all those kind of things. So everything I just said through there kind of applies to that. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to be basically wrapping it up. Rolling, let's see. So I use the 8 and 21 exponential, and then I use the 50 and 200 simple. And then drag it. I mean, you're kind of seeing it. What time frames are most important to me? I mean, you're looking at it. This is how I teach all the time. So these are my primary ones. I don't really look much at the 5 and 2 unless I'm trying to day trade, but I do always look at the monthly and weekly for context. But as far as the things I really need to know in order to navigate the market for the most part, daily, hourly, 15, and yeah, you're seeing it. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Remember to come over here to profitpilot.com because, I've got some pretty good newsletters on here that have been guiding the market really well. And then for the Moxie folks, I'm going to be back on the options room and in the Moxie in, I think, about half an hour. So I'll see you guys there. And have a great rest of your